What if America's biggest crisis isn't the tents, the sidewalks, or the headlines, but something moving silently through every major city at night? From Skid Row to Kensington, a force with no face and no mercy is reshaping entire neighborhoods. It doesn't sleep, it doesn't stop, and it doesn't care who it takes next. We thought we understood homelessness. We were wrong.
I'm truly alone. Just you.
Do you choose?
Not a person to turn to in life. For me, I would have had to call Daniel. Because I would have absolutely nobody, not a friend, who would let me in, not anybody.
When people talk about the homeless crisis in America, they usually picture tents under bridges, crowded sidewalks, or people sleeping on cardboard. But what's really happening on the streets goes far deeper than what we see. For years, a quiet storm has been building a public health crisis that didn't explode overnight. It grew slowly, silently slipping past a system that was already stretched thin.
I actually started doing meth to stay awake because of the fact of waking up. And I was scared.
According to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, more than 653,000 Americans were homeless in 2023, the highest number ever recorded, and a 12% jump in just 1 year. That rise didn't happen because shelters disappeared overnight. It happened because the system supporting the most vulnerable people has been failing for decades. During the same period, meth use surged across major cities. The National Survey on Drug Use and Health reported that about 2.6 million Americans used meth in 2022, and the numbers climbed even higher among people living on the streets.
Use methamphetamine. I have a severe attention deficit problem, or borderline narcolepsy.
Outreach teams in cities like Los Angeles, Seattle, and Phoenix say meth-related psychiatric crises have become a daily reality. But this crisis didn't start with meth. It started with broken systems mental health care that's hard to access, housing costs that crush working families, and government social support that never matched the scale of the need. A 2022 study found that nearly 30% of homeless adults live with serious mental illness, and most never receive consistent treatment. When all those cracks widened, meth slipped right through them.
It gives you a euphoric rush. It's like your whole body tingles all over the place, and it's a good feeling. Happy, giddy. But then when you come down off of it, then people start wanting more, and they go crazy, and that's when they lose themselves.
And the silence surrounding it made everything worse. For many Americans, homelessness still feels like a distant problem, something happening somewhere else. But the truth is, every encampment, every overdose, every person living outside reflects a deeper collapse. This crisis didn't appear out of nowhere. We saw the warning signs, we looked away. And now the fallout is in front of us, raw, visible, and impossible to ignore. On the streets, meth isn't treated like a party drug. For many, it has become a survival tool, the only way to stay awake, stay alert, and stay alive. When you're homeless, every night is a risk. You sleep with one eye open. You carry everything you own. You're vulnerable to theft, assault, and the cold. In that kind of reality, meth becomes a shield, even if it's a dangerous one. Researchers from UCSF found that about 1/3 of homeless adults in major cities use meth several times per week, often for reasons tied to safety, not recreation. One person told outreach workers, "I don't use meth to get high. I use it because I'm scared to sleep." When you hear that, it changes how you see addiction. Meth suppresses hunger. It boosts energy when your body is exhausted. It keeps you moving when you have nowhere safe to go. For people dealing with trauma or untreated mental illness, it becomes a fast, cheap way to keep fear and pain at a distance. But the cost is devastating. The CDC reports that meth-related overdose deaths increased nearly 50% from 2019 to 2021, often involving people already living in unstable conditions. Meth tears down the mind long before the system steps in. Paranoia, hallucinations, and meth-induced psychosis have become common in encampments nationwide. And here's the hard truth: the system isn't built for people in this level of crisis. Many addiction treatment programs require stable schedules, IDs, clean drug tests, or insurance. But over 70% of homeless individuals lack consistent access to medical care, making treatment nearly impossible to sustain. So the cycle continues. Meth helps people survive the street, but also keeps them trapped there. It fills the void left by systems that collapsed long before they ever picked up a pipe. When you walk into certain encampments across the country, you feel the tension before you see anything. The air is heavy. People move differently, fast, alert, scanning for threats even when nothing is happening. This is where the homeless crisis in America feels the most real. Here, meth doesn't just exist, it shapes the rhythm of daily life. In places like Skid Row, the Tenderloin, and that infamous stretch known online as Kensington, Philadelphia meth, the normal rules of society simply don't apply. These neighborhoods have become survival zones built from whatever people can gather: tarps, broken furniture, scrap wood. But inside all this chaos, there's something else, an invisible system created by the people living there. People warn each other about dangerous batches. They share food, water, blankets, and sometimes even the little calm they have left. They look out for newcomers. They check on someone who's been sitting too long. It's messy and fragile, but it's a community one formed out of pure necessity. But meth changes the energy of these places. It speeds everything up. It turns small disagreements into conflicts. It heightens fear. It pushes people into constant motion, even when they desperately need rest. And when paranoia hits the pacing, the whispering, the sudden panic, the whole encampment feels the shift. This is why harm reduction services matter so much on the ground. Outreach teams bring clean supplies, medical checks, food, and crisis support. They aren't encouraging drug use. They're trying to keep people alive long enough for treatment to even be possible. Without them, the public health crisis would be far worse than what we already see. But even with support, the cycle inside encampments is relentless. Meth becomes both the tool that helps people survive and the trap that keeps them stuck. And for most Americans who only pass by in their cars, this reality is invisible. If you want to understand homeless in America, you have to step inside these spaces, the places most people never see, and face what's happening up close. There's a moment you see again and again on the streets, a blank stare, a drifting gaze, a person talking to someone who isn't there. It's the quiet sign of something deeper, a mind unraveling long before help arrives. And this is where the crisis shifts from addiction to something even more complicated, a mental health emergency happening in plain sight. Meth doesn't just exhaust the body, it overwhelms the mind. People begin pacing for hours, terrified of threats that don't exist. Some hear voices. Some argue with shadows. Others freeze in place, unable to process what's happening around them. In many encampments, meth-induced psychosis is as common as hunger or cold. This is why mental health awareness isn't optional. It's central to understanding the crisis. Studies show that a large portion of people experiencing homelessness already have untreated mental illness. When meth enters the picture, everything escalates. Trauma becomes louder. Memories sharpen into panic. Fear becomes a constant companion. And yet, the system is rarely able to respond fast enough. Hospitals often release people within hours. Crisis teams are stretched thin. Long-term psychiatric care is nearly impossible to access without stability or paperwork. Many addiction treatment programs expect people to show up sober on time and with documents requirements almost impossible for someone in active psychosis. Outreach workers say they sometimes meet the same person dozens of times before that person is clear enough to even talk about treatment. By then, the damage is deeper. The collapse has already begun. This gap between what people need and what the system can deliver is where the public health crisis becomes undeniable. We're trying to treat addiction without treating the mind it has already broken. We're offering short-term solutions to long-term wounds, and we're expecting stability from people living in complete instability. The truth is simple: if we don't address the mental health side of this crisis, addiction will keep winning. And the people suffering the most, those living outside alone, terrified, will continue slipping through the cracks of a system too slow to catch them. Every time you sit with outreach workers, you hear the same frustration. The system was never built for people living minute to minute in crisis. On paper, America has shelters, clinics, hotlines, and addiction treatment programs. But on the street where people face danger every night, most of those resources feel distant, slow, or completely out of reach. A big part of the problem is capacity. Across the country, shelters are full almost every night. In cities facing the worst of the homeless crisis in America, some providers report wait lists that stretch for weeks. And in a world shaped by meth and constant instability, a delay of even 24 hours might mean losing the only chance someone had to seek help. Medical services are stretched just as thin. Many harm reduction services operate with tiny teams covering entire districts. Detox beds are limited, and mental health units often turn people away unless they're in immediate danger to themselves or others. It's not because workers don't care, it's because the system was designed decades ago before the current public health crisis exploded. Government social support hasn't kept up either. People who try to enter programs often face mountains of paperwork, ID requirements, and steps that assume stability: a phone, an address, a place to store documents. But when everything you own fits in a backpack, these requirements become barriers instead of pathways. One statistic says it all: for every 100 extremely low-income Americans, only 33 affordable housing units exist. The gap forces thousands into encampments where meth becomes part of daily survival. And even when someone is ready for help, the window is small. Addiction doesn't wait for business hours. Trauma doesn't pause until a caseworker calls back. Many people fall through the cracks simply because the support they need arrives days, weeks, or months too late. This is the heart of the crisis, a system designed for stable people, trying to serve those with no stability at all. Until we bridge that gap, the streets will keep absorbing the fallout. We are at a crossroads. Ignoring the homeless crisis in America or pretending a meth addiction is someone else's problem is no longer an option. This crisis exposes weaknesses in our system gaps in mental health awareness, underfunded addiction treatment programs, insufficient harm reduction services, and a lack of coordination across local and federal agencies. Some argue for enforcement. Sweeps, cleanups, arrests. These haven't worked, not in Skid Row, not in Kensington, not anywhere in the country. Others argue for housing-first solutions, long-term care, and community support systems. These show promise but require commitment, patience, and funding that cities rarely sustain. The path forward lies in the middle. Compassion must meet accountability. Treatment must meet stability. Outreach workers, street medics, and volunteers, people on the front lines show what's possible. Cities cities with strong harm reduction services see lower overdose deaths and better engagement with addiction treatment programs, while stable housing gives people the time to access mental health care. Meth is more than a drug problem. It's a mirror of years of neglect, underfunding, and systemic failure. The people living through this crisis deserve more than survival. They deserve dignity, stability, and a chance at recovery. Every life matters. Every life is worth fighting for. If this story moved you, you can help. Even a small donation to local shelters, harm reduction services, or addiction treatment programs can save lives. Supporting this channel through YouTube, memberships, super chats, or donations helps fund more reporting and coverage of the homeless crisis in America. Every contribution ensures these stories are heard and every voice counts. The question is simple. Will we continue looking away, or will we finally decide that every life out here is worth fighting for?